Greetings, metaphysicians. This is episode 145, Death to the Ego, Part 2. That's right, I did not know I was creating a Part 2 until after I created Part 1, but this episode is all about the collective ego, the societal ego. So I hope you get something amazing out of it. Enjoy the episode.
You're listening to Let's Get Metaphysical. This podcast explores the spiritual and metaphysical world through the experiences and opinions of the host and those interviewed. It should not necessarily be seen as direct endorsement or personal advice to our listeners. We encourage you to use your own discernment, judgment, and intuition regarding anything you learn from this show.
Let's get meta.
Welcome to the Let's Get Metaphysical podcast. I'm your host, Renata Maniaci, here to remind you that you are an eternal spiritual being having a temporary human experience here on lovely planet Earth. Enjoy it. This is still Season 7, Heaven on Earth, the longest season, and this is episode 145, Death to the Ego, Part 2. And when I recorded my last episode, Death to the Ego Part 1, I did not know that it was a Part 1, but indeed it is. That episode was all about human ego, individual ego, personal ego, your ego, my ego, on that level. And I do have a few more things to say about that. But this episode that dropped in after I recorded that first one is all about societal ego, humanity ego, civilizational ego on a more community level, collective level that also wanted to come in and be talked about. So let's get right into it, shall we? Are you ready? Let's get meta. Masters and angels, I request your presence, guidance, and support through this episode. Please help these words to be useful to all listeners on their evolutionary journey. Let me know the truth, speak the truth, become the truth, and be the truth. And please let this episode reach whoever needs to hear it. Thank you with gratitude and full faith. Bless creation. So before jumping off into societal ego and the collective ego, I guess I could call it, just a few more points I wanted to reiterate about the last episode about personal ego, your ego, my ego. I don't think that I stated anything about the ego about us not needing it. We do need it. We don't want it to be completely destroyed. So I guess that the title of these episodes is a little misleading. We don't actually want our egos to completely die. They are a part of us while we are in these bodies, while we are in these avatars that are walking around and doing things on this planet and living out this path, this growth experience, this karmic contract, this everything. So death to the ego is really kind of a misnomer, but it's just to say that what we really want is more of your divine self, more of your eternal self, more of your soul, more of your higher self, more of your own awareness to come through and run this show. But the ego in itself is not necessarily bad. It can be useful. It can save your life in certain situations. The point that they're trying to come across with is that we have evolved to use it too much, to over-identify with it, to rely on it, to trust it more than ourselves, more than our true soul selves, our divine selves, our true nature, we have done that. We have over-identified with our human ego and our humanly constructed ego. And that contributes to us making anti-divine choices. Anti-divine choices. And also contributes to us maybe needing to have a bit longer of a growth experience, a bit more intense of a learning experience or situation, because our egos are making many of our decisions, and that's not how it was supposed to be. But the way we have created and constructed society on this planet, the ego in many places, not in all places, but in many places, has become bigger than it was supposed to be, overly used. So that is what I was saying that I needed to say in the last episode that I did not. And there you go. So I was interested when this next episode came in, part 2, around collective ego, humanity ego. But I wasn't surprised necessarily, because if there is an individual ego, there is obviously a collective humanity ego. And we just need to scratch the surface of that to see what we're talking about here. Humans, we think we know better in general, right? Better than the animals that we dominate and control, better than nature that we try to dominate and control. Clearly, many humans think they know better than God, especially because many humans are not believing or acknowledging a higher power, a supreme being, a source, a creative creator who is the creator of this creation. However you want to say that. And, these words are touchy for people. I've talked at length about how I wasn't even able to say the word God for most of my life, and unraveling that a lot of that had to do with how humanly constructed religion spoke about God and how it didn't resonate with me. And so that term became something that felt wrong to me. Not the concept, not the overarching concept of there being something else that is running this creation, but just that term. So, as I've said many times on this show, you insert the terms, the words, the concepts, the ideas, the feeling, the knowing yourself, whatever that is for you. And that's okay. And I think most of you do that anyway. And also, nobody has to listen to the show. This is a free will choice that you are making. So, societal ego, humanity ego. In the last episode, I talked a lot about letting our ego be destroyed, and that things will happen in the course of our lives, in the trajectory of our life path, that will chip away at ego that has become untenable and unuseful to our evolution. That happens. Well, it turns out that the same is true for the collective ego. And we have but to open our eyes and ears and look around at what's happening in this world right now at this time to see how many things are being destroyed that were in fact created by the human ego, or as a major part of the human ego. And this is another thing I've talked about on the show before, is that so many things are being destroyed right now, and so many ugly things are coming to the surface so that we can see them from the clear light of day instead of being hidden in the shadows. If things are hidden, we can't heal them. We aren't aware of them. We don't know about them consciously, and they can't be healed and fixed and rectified and built up and created anew with a more divine blueprint. And so what we are seeing and experiencing right now is also a destruction, a massive destruction of many aspects of collective ego. We are seeing the destruction of humanly constructed arenas, such as, let's see, what to pick. Healthcare, once held up as the foundation or a foundation of a functioning society, is to help keep its people healthy and safe. We're really realizing that we don't really know a lot of the true causes of what ails us. And what's more is that the quote unquote solutions that are offered to us sometimes make it worse, sometimes make our conditions worse, or add new conditions that we didn't have before. So this thing that was constructed by all the smart people and the brilliant people and the intelligent minds, and I'm not saying that they weren't, but a lot of that was built on ego and going forward. And what do I mean by that? I mean, it wasn't built on the truth. These things that we think are causing us harm maybe aren't, and these things that are in fact causing us harm, we have no idea about. And people are seeing that now, and that's just in health. That's just in so-called healthcare, which many are starting to call sick care, because we're really just staying sick and getting more sick. And, I do talk about health a lot. I do have a public health background. That is the field that I was going into before I took a right-hand turn into holistic health and spirituality and all of this metaphysical stuff. So I do feel strongly about it, but we can also talk about education. The way that we do education works for some people, but it doesn't work for a lot of people. And who chooses what we learn? The ego, the human ego, decides that we need to learn X, Y, and Z, but doesn't even mention other things about the nature of our creation, about the nature of who we are, about the divine coordination and synchronicities that run the whole planet and run the universe. We don't learn about that. So it has to be a humanly constructed ego that has created the curriculum that humans learn as they grow up in these temporary bodies. And we're seeing the education system change. Recently, we're seeing embarrassment and destruction of what was once held the highest educational fortresses, at least in the United States. We've all heard about what happened with Harvard recently. And this can be also considered the unraveling of a societal, a collective, a civilizational, a humanity ego. Things that we constructed and built up to be the foundations, the pillars of our society and how it runs. And we are seeing the cracks in those pillars and foundations, and how actually they might not truly be based in divine truth. This is about our soul and the divine part of us dropping in more to run this show, or to truly help run the show. because there is a divinity running it. We have for so long just assumed that we know better. And of course, I'm speaking on such a broad level right now. This doesn't include tribes and certain cultures, and there are ways of being on this planet that are very closely tied to nature still, that are very closely tied to listening to the planet and listening to not only the planet, but the intuition, the divine. Those peoples still exist. On this level, on this dimension, they seem to be few and far between, but some are still left. So I don't mean to leave out those peoples and those individuals that obviously are in tune with and listening to nature and divinity. Okay? But collectively, at this time, we cannot truly say that we have listened to our souls and whatever you characterize as the divine source when we are constructing how to be in this creation, how to exist in this creation, how to evolve in this creation, how to be at one with nature, how to learn from nature, how to be humble enough, have enough humility to know that we do not know everything. And then to ask for help. To ask for help from the divine, huge part of the show. If you're just tuning in, you probably heard my prayer at the beginning. If this is the first episode you've ever listened to, why do I do that? Why do I say a prayer at the beginning of my episodes? Because truly, I'm sure it turns a lot of people off. But I do that because I'm asking for help. I'm asking for support and guidance from beings that have more awareness and consciousness, a higher level of consciousness than I do. I'm asking to be connected to my higher self, my soul, and I'm asking for assistance because inherently I know that I don't know everything. So just doing that is acknowledging that I don't know everything. Even if it turns some people off, even if it's not the sexiest thing to do on an episode, that's okay. I'm demonstrating how to ask for help and become closer with the divine by doing that. Now, I don't know everything, obviously, which is why I ask for help, but I know enough to know that I know almost nothing, and that there is intelligence and knowledge and knowing and forces beyond me and my ability and my capability and my awareness that can help me on this journey. And in fact, who are there to help me on this journey, and others, and anyone who asks for help. But because this is a free will planet, we have free will, we make our own choices. Do I want to go to Waffle House tonight, or do I want to go to an Italian pizzeria? I can make that choice. It's probably also always going to be Waffle House, just in case you were wondering. But the point is, how often has society, humanity, engaged with nature, engaged with the divine to decide how to be in this creation, how to build houses, how to educate our youth, how to heal the ailing, the ill, the sick, how to communicate with one another, how to be in harmonious and happy living and life, how to have harmonious, loving relationships, how to construct a divine society that works for everyone in conjunction with the laws of nature and the laws of the universe. When have we done that? I'm not saying that we haven't. I'm just pointing out that this societal ego is also on the docket to be amended. I was going to say destroyed. There are aspects of it that are being destroyed because it's time. It's time to be more at one with nature, more at one with the divine, and doing less anti-divine things. And I don't even have to list those things. You know what those are. Because we all know, we can all feel what anti-divinity is at our core. We are hardwired. We're hardwired to be able to feel what is divine behavior and feel what is anti-divine behavior. And the ego is part and parcel to the experience of evolving in our level of consciousness and allowing the ego to take a back seat and allowing God, the source, the creator, the higher power, the universe, the all that is, whatever or whomever created this creation that we are currently all experiencing, in to help us make it more perfect, more happy, more blissful, more divine, more light-filled, easier, more effortless, more blissful, all of these things. That is the way that we are going on this planet, though it might not seem like that right now. I think we're in for quite an interesting year. I am not a fortune teller, but there's a lot in the air right now. There's a lot happening. There's a lot that's coming to the surface that has been hidden for a long, long time. And I believe that that will keep happening, and that more of our societal and humanity, civilization, collective, whatever you want to call it, ego, is chipped away at. Because it was constructed by humans anyway. I want to see more of what was constructed by the divine. I want to understand all of the laws of nature, all of the laws of the universe, because we make human laws here. That's true. But do you think that those laws work on other planets? Are they laws in other civilizations, in other higher level consciousness experiences? No, we created those. But there are laws of nature that are true here and true everywhere. There are laws of the universe that are true here and true everywhere. Everywhere. Our solar system, our galaxy, our universe, all of the universes, all of the planets. I'm interested to start living by those. And as we chip away at our individual and collective egos, that divinity comes through more. We become more aware of that truth, that knowing, that understanding that, oh yeah, there is a better way. There is a higher way. There is a light-filled way. I'm not just here to make sure that I look beautiful for my whole life. I'm not just here to work this 9-to-5 job for 40 years and get 2 weeks of vacation every year. I'm not just here to etc., etc., etc. There's more than that. There's more than that. You know it, and I know it. So, as this chipping away at and destruction of collective ego continues, it will be interesting to see what replaces it. What comes through to replace these things that were created by the mindset of humans know best. I know best. This is what we should teach. This is how we should build. This is how we heal people. What comes after that? So, Death to the Ego Part 2 is really about allowing the unnecessary parts of our individual and collective egos to die and to hopefully be reborn in the form of more of our souls coming in, more divinity coming in, more truth coming in. I have a suspicion that that is what's happening. It's already happening. It's happening. It's been happening. It will continue to happen. But I'm really excited to start to see the fruits of that. It's like the seeds were planted long ago. The tree's been growing slowly, so slowly it's almost unnoticeable. But at some point, the fruits on that tree are going to be ready and visible. And I'm excited to see what those are. This is all about becoming closer to our true nature. This is what it's all about. Becoming closer and closer to who we really are, why we're really here, why you really had to meet that person and go through that heartache, why you really had to suffer with that disease or have that accident. And at the same time, meet that amazing person, have that incredible experience, be put in an impossibly serendipitous situation. All of it. All of it. So I'm going to leave that there for today. I usually don't do this, but if you've been listening to the podcast however long and you're enjoying any of it, especially if you're listening on Spotify, I would really appreciate a positive, glowing review of it. Why? Because it's not something I ask for very often, but I have been thinking about the next season, which is going to come sooner rather than later. And it's going to be a really important season. And I want as many people that are supposed to hear it. And the higher the ratings of this show are, the more likely it is to be found by the right people. And so in anticipation of our next season, which I'm really excited about, I would like to get those ratings up. And if you can help me with that, I'd really appreciate it. In addition, I do have a Patreon, and Patreon has finally created a free tier. So you can join with no money down as a free patron angel of this podcast. And every once in a while, there are other tiers that get access to more things, bonus contents, clearings from me, other live events, etc. But every once in a while, I will have one of the live events available for everyone in the community, including the free tier. So go ahead and check that out at patreon.com/letsgetmeta if you have any interest. As always, thank you so much for listening. Stay positive, stay safe, and stay meta.
The Let's Get Metaphysical podcast is an Up and Awaken production and is produced and hosted by Renata Maniaci. Our intention is to raise the vibration of the planet by sharing, validating, and normalizing spiritual and metaphysical experiences. If you are ready to raise your vibration, you might enjoy our free Let's Get Meta Master Clearing. To receive the Master Clearing or to learn more about the podcast, visit letsgetmeta.com. The Let's Get Meta podcast is inspired by angels and supported by angels. If you would like to be a patron angel to the podcast, visit patreon.com/letsgetmeta. Thank you for listening. Stay meta.
Let's get meta.
Metaphysical.
Let's get meta.
Metaphysical.
Let's get meta.
Metaphysical.
Let's get meta.
Metaphysical.